We all know that Pokémon is about catching them all, but sometimes you just can't because the game won't let you. Believe it or not, there are Pokémon that you cannot catch in the Pokémon games, and this is something that I've been talking about in a couple of videos recently. And today I am here to talk about it some more because there are more of these kinds of Pokémon than you would think. So let's go ahead and check it out. The first mon of this video that you can't catch in the games can't be caught because it's not actually a Pokemon, it's Folkachi, my new channel mascot and the mascot of the new monster catching video game that I am currently developing, Histrobi Chronicles. And while you can't catch Folkachi right now, you can pick him up as an adorable, soft, and super high quality plushie at histrobishop.com with the link in the description below. And if you're quick and are watching this on November 28th when this video releases, you can still take advantage of the Black Friday Cyber Monday sale by using code BFCM at checkout to get 10% off your order. But you better act fast because the 28th is the last day of this sale before it goes away. It makes for a great time to pick up this amazingly high quality and adorable plushie that you cannot get anywhere else, and it supports the channel immensely and keeps videos like this one happening when you do. So it really makes a difference and is very much appreciated. And a massive thank you to everyone who has grabbed one so far, it really means a lot. If you still need to grab yours though, use that link in the description below to pick up a plushie today, and use that code to get that sweet discount before it's too late. And a big thanks to Folkachi, and all of you guys especially, for supporting the channel. The first one we're going to talk about is both a unique one and an obvious one, so I'm surprised it didn't get covered in the first two videos on this topic. But it is Eternatus Eternatus. This Pokemon, or Pokemon form rather, is quite unique in that it appears directly in the games in Sword and Shield as a major central point of the plot even, and yet it is entirely unobtainable by the player. If you catch Eternatus and try to Dynamax it, or in this case, Eternamax it, you'll simply get Dynamax Eternatus with no way of accessing the Eternamax form. Now, the reason for this is pretty simple, and that is that it is beyond busted. Eternamax Eternatus has a base stat total of 1125, which is the highest base stat total in all of Pokemon, and over 300 points higher than the next closest Pokemon. Quite simply, it is too powerful for the player to be able to obtain it, and since when you face off against it, you do so in a raid battle, it was obviously intentionally made to be that way. However, it doesn't change the fact that having a unique form appear in a game like this, that we even have a battle against, and not have it be obtainable, is really unusual. In fact, there isn't really another case like it, or at least there wasn't at the time, which is a shame even if it is understandable, because I think being able to use Eternamax Eternatus would have added a lot of enjoyment and likability to Eternatus as a Pokemon. And when I said that there wasn't really another case like it at the time, this is what I meant, because while Eternamax Eternatus was unique at the time of Sword and Shield's release, maybe it actually isn't so much now, because we would actually end up seeing something similar in the very next generation in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with the Starmobiles. The Starmobiles aren't completely a Pokemon, but they are powered by a Revavroom and are more or less a Revavroom form, especially because each form has its own unique typing, ability, and even a signature move that only they can use. So they definitely have everything they need to be their own official form. But sadly, just like Eternatus, they aren't ones that you can obtain or use. They purely serve as boss characters characters just like Eternatus, and while this one isn't necessarily the saddest thing in the world since they are kinda just cars with a Pokemon in them, it would still be really sick to be able to use a Revavroom with these typings, abilities, and moves. So them being uncatchable is unfortunate at the same time. Speaking of Revavroom though, its pre-evolution Varoom also has somewhat of an unobtainable form as well. In Varoom's Scarlet Pokédex entry, it says that it is said that this Pokemon was born when an unknown poison Pokemon entered and inspirited an engine left at a scrap processing factory. So basically, Varoom has a secret, original form that we don't get to see, which is pretty cool. All we know about it is that it is a poison type, and presumably pure poison, since Varoom is steel poison. And while this is obviously solely for the purpose of Varoom's backstory, and is never going to be seen or be an actual Pokemon of its own in all likelihood, it is still a really cool piece of info, in my opinion. Another Pokemon similar to this from Scarlet and Violet can be seen in the Scarlet and Violet books. We can only see it from behind, but it doesn't seem to resemble any kind of Pokemon we know about currently, and that is this mysterious gorilla-like Pokemon. When I see this, Pokemon like Oranguru and Slaking immediately come to mind, but it's easy to rule those two out based on the differences we can see between them and this image. For example, this Pokemon has a smooth body and doesn't have the big frilly purple coat that Oranguru has, and it seems to have different hair patterns and hair type to Slaking as well. There are also other Pokemon on this page that are drawn accurately to how they actually appear as well, so it's pretty safe to say that it's not really an artist's interpretation of these Pokemon either. Obviously, we don't know what it is, and it could still be anything, including a Pokemon that we already know about, but as of right now, and from what we can tell, it doesn't look like one, and it doesn't look like a Pokemon that is obtainable in the games at this present moment, so it gets to be included on the list. The recent generations have certainly enjoyed giving us a lot of new Pokemon in this department, because in Gen 8, we also got the true forms of the Galar fossil Pokemon that belong in this group as well. The Galar fossils are all about making reference to the mistakes in fossil reconstruction that occurred back in the day, which resulted in fossils of creatures that never actually existed, and it gave us these monstrosities in Pokemon. Even if they are pretty ugly, it's still a pretty cool concept for a fossil Pokemon, but the kicker here is that you make these Pokemon by putting together two pieces of two different fossil Pokemon, with 4 pieces in total, meaning that there are actual fossil Pokemon out there with regular, normal bodies that we never get to see fully restored because the game doesn't allow you to properly put these fossils back together. They have to be erroneously mishmashed. This is another one like Varoom, where sadly, this was written just for the purpose of these Pokemon's backstories and their inspiration, and we will most likely never see these Pokemon for real. But honestly, these ones are way more feasible and realistic in terms of whether we could ever see them, because it's just a matter of their fossils being put together in the right way. This is definitely the kind of thing that could be addressed in a remake or a Legends game, so while it's unlikely, I also feel like it's very possible at the same time. So in 2042, when the remakes start happening for the Galar games, we could possibly be in for a real treat. Until then though, it's probably not gonna happen. One that's obvious but also very literal, as these are legitimately actual Pokemon that you cannot catch in the games even though they are in the games, are shiny locked Pokemon. We all know about these and how lame and awful they are, but if you need a refresher, basically these are Pokemon who cannot appear as shiny in the games no matter what, no matter how hard you try, even though they are given a shiny form and it does actually exist. Some shiny locked Pokemon are unlocked later on, so they're not inaccessible forever, and others can be obtained through other methods than catching them, such as with event distributions or even breeding. According to Bulbapedia, there are currently 35 Pokemon as of the making of this video who have never been obtainable as shiny in any way, with most of them being legendaries and mythicals. I can understand if you sometimes want to save a shiny for an event distribution, but other than that, shiny locking is undoubtedly one of the stupidest things to ever be included in a Pokemon game. It completely defeats the purpose of even giving the Pokemon a shiny form in the first place, and is just a big slap in the face to fans who could be enjoying the games way more by hunting these shiny Pokemon. So hopefully Game Freak will knock this crap off in the future, although it'll probably keep happening if we're being honest with ourselves. Of all the Pokemon with unobtainable forms that come to mind, Mantyke probably isn't one of them, but it is indeed a Pokemon with unobtainable forms too. It has multiple Pokédex entries which state that the pattern on Mantyke's back differs by region. However, this has never been seen at all to this point in any Pokemon game, as Mantyke has always had the same back pattern in every game it appears in. This is unfortunate since it would definitely make Mantyke way more interesting and memorable, without really having to put in all that much effort on the development side of things. It's also weird that it's repeatedly written in the Pokédex, but has never actually been seen, even once in-game. It's a really cool piece of lore, but you might as well not include it if we can easily see that it isn't actually the case, especially because it would be so simple to implement. Luckily for Game Freak though, a new generation or region comes out every 3 years or so they will have chances to make this right in the future and include Mantyke with different patterns, so hopefully they'll actually take advantage and do that someday. Another Pokemon that is also right along these lines is Arbok. Everyone pretty much knows by now how Arbok's belly pattern changes from region to region, or at least it's supposed to. Its dex entry in Ultra Sun says that there are over 20 different patterns that an Arbok is known to be able to have, yet we have only seen 3 in the games, and those would be patterns that appear in the Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn regions. So it's like they did actually plan on implementing this at first, but then kinda just gave up later on. And that means that at least 17 forms of Arbok are entirely unobtainable in the games, and we don't even get to so much as catch a glimpse of them. However, there have been several other Arbok forms published outside of the main series games that we can at least get a look at, and some of them even have names, like the attack, speed, and invulnerability patterns that appear in the manga and the anime. There are also a couple of other miscellaneous forms that appear here and there as well, like in the TCG, but that still leaves about 10 or so forms that we haven't been able to see at all, let alone been able to catch, which is definitely a big shame. It wouldn't feel right to talk about Arbok without Weezing though, and wouldn't you know it, Weezing has an unobtainable Pokédex form too. In Weezing's Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum Pokédex entries, it says it grows by feeding on gases released by garbage, though very rare, triplets have been found. Naturally, this would mean that Weezings with 3 heads actually exist. Normal Weezing always have 3 segments to their bodies, but the small segment isn't an actual head like the other 2, but according to this Pokédex entry, they do exist. We haven't seen them of course, but dagnabbit, I think that is really cool, and it would be amazing to actually see a 3-headed Weezing someday. The world of secret lore-based forms goes pretty deep if you can believe it though, because this group of Pokemon also includes Gastrodon. In Gastrodon's Pokédex entries, it talks about how long ago it used to have a giant shell that covered its whole back, which it used for protection. Gastrodon has no shell whatsoever nowadays, so this would be fairly different to the Gastrodon that we know, which is pretty interesting. We haven't been able to see or catch this Gastrodon though, which is sad, and especially sad because it had the perfect opportunity to become a thing in Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was even set in Gastrodon's home region. But it appeared like it normally does in that game, so apparently this form dates back even farther than Legends. It doesn't stop there though for Gastrodon, because the Pokédex even gives us rumblings of a potential second uncatchable Gastrodon form as well, as the Dex entry for its East Sea form in Pokemon Sun says that a team of researchers is scouring the oceans of the world in search of a Gastrodon in a color never seen before. Now, they could just be trying to find a new color, not knowing if one actually exists, but to me, this sounds like they are looking for a new color of Gastrodon that they have reason to believe actually exists, but it just hasn't been seen, which is a really cool prospect. I have often thought myself what it could be like if a North Sea or a South Sea Gastrodon were to ever exist, and I think seeing something like that would be really cool. So I would be all for this secret color of Gastrodon, or the one with a shell, actually being discovered someday. And with that, those were some more Pokemon that you can't catch in the games. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like because it really helps out, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe if you're new for more videos just like this. Also, be sure to grab a Folkachi plushie, and be quick on that Black Friday sale that's currently going on, because the day this video goes live, November 28th, is the last day of the sale. So be sure to pick one up before the sale goes away, and if you do, it is extremely appreciated and helps out the channel a ton. With that said, I will be back very soon with another new video, and until then, as always, thank you all so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.